Hello and welcome to our weekly online service. We're so glad to be together today. And this morning and this evening, we're actually having two services in person, which is so exciting to be back together in the building, worshiping together. And I'm really excited for this gathering that's happening, but also for others that we're planning this summer. So in a few weeks, we're going to be meeting again in person, and we want you to be a part of it. So stay tuned for updates. We'd love to have you to join us in our building together again. We're just loving it. Today was awesome, and we're so excited to be together, to worship together, to celebrate, to have community together. But we're also so excited for this space, for what God's going to do on the service today. So thank you so much for watching and being a part of it. With services coming in a few weeks and with ministry starting back up and just thinking about how exciting the fall is going to be, where we can all gather together and corporately worship together, there's actually quite a few ways to get involved, to volunteer and to serve at the house. And maybe, we think about the season of the summer being a place where we take vacations and take holidays. But if you're finding yourself available, we'd love for you to join us at the church for different ministries that are taking place. We have opportunities in productions, in worship ministries, in kids and youth, and there's just so much going on. We're gonna be re-engaging our community, getting together, having a blast, and we'd love for you to join us for that. In Romans 12:11, there's a verse that I just love, and it says this: "Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor by serving the Lord." And I just think that's so true, that when we serve the church or when we serve one another, it actually builds our own faith. It doesn't deplete us, but when we're giving back to people, man, I feel so charged and excited. So I want to encourage you, if you want to be a part of what's happening this summer, you can email us at info@thehouseonline.ca. We'd love to get you involved, and we're so excited. Speaking of activities for kids and youth, we actually have another big announcement that we're really excited about sharing this morning, is that we actually have hired an intern to join us this summer. And he's going to do awesome things with kids and youth and overall our next gen. And I want to introduce you to him. So, hey, come on in here. This is Lucas. And so Lucas is joining us part-time this summer, and we're so excited for all that he's going to be doing with us.
Like Matt said, my name is Lucas Vanderhook. I have been with this church for a couple of years, and I am super excited to be with the church and help out with the youth and kids ministry this year. We got so many events planned. We just had Fun Friday, which is amazing. And then we got our big youth kickoff coming up real soon, which we are so excited about. Yeah. It's gonna be amazing. Big things happening this summer, and we're all very, very excited.
Yeah, so this Tuesday, we have our high school ministry, middle school ministry kickoff at 6:30 at KCS. Make sure you sign up if you have a student in that age group. But before we go any further, we're about to spend a time of worship together. So how about we just pray and bow our heads and pray as we worship together as a church. Dear God, thank you so much that when we serve you, when we give to others, we actually find our faith built up, God. Right now, I just pray that we would be blessed by the worship team that served, that put this worship set together. I pray that we let it minister to our hearts and we take time just to focus on you. We love you, Jesus. We're so excited for where you're taking this community this fall. Big things are ahead. We're so excited for what's around the corner. We're leaning in with expectation with what you want to do in this community and in our hearts as well. We love you, Jesus. Amen. All right, let's worship today.
I know you're drawing near as I worship. Held within your love, the wind and waves will come, I will stay here. I lift my hands to heaven, hear my heart surrender. Tell my soul again, you are Lord of all. Though the seas are raging, you will speak and tame them. You I find my rest, you are in control. Through valleys I will trust, your spirit is enough to keep me walking. You guide my every step, speak life to me again. Lord, I need you, oh I need you. I lift my hands to heaven, hear my heart surrender. Tell my soul again, you are Lord of all. And though the seas are raging, you will speak and take them. You I find my rest, you are in control. I lift my hands to heaven, hear my heart surrender. Tell my soul again, Lord of all. Though the seas are raging, you will speak and tame them. You I find my rest, you're in control. Oh, you're in control. Oh, you're in control of our lives. Oh, Lord, I will trust in you, and I will trust in only you. No one can add to your perfection. You're the beginning and the end, more than I can comprehend. There is no one like you, no one. I will trust in only you. No one can add to your perfection. You're the beginning and the end, more than I can comprehend. There is no one like you, Jesus. I lift my hands to heaven, hear my heart surrender. Tell my soul again, you are Lord of all. Though the seas are raging, you will speak and tame them. You I find my rest, you are in control. I lift my hands to heaven, hear my heart surrender. Tell my soul again, you are Lord of all. Though the seas are raging, you will speak and tame them. You I find my rest, you are in control. You I find my rest, you are in control.
Hello, church, and welcome to our service. It's an honor to share the message with you today. we were pleasantly surprised by Thursday's government announcement, which allows us to resume in-person gatherings here at the church. And we're currently working out the details on everything involved and invite you to follow us on our social media feeds and keep checking our website for the upcoming announcements that we'll make in the coming week or so. We are in the third week of our series on the Gospel of Mark, and we're still making our way through the first chapter. As a reminder, the first week we looked at how Mark opens his book by introducing it as the Gospel of Jesus. And that word gospel comes from the Greek word euangelion, which is a political term announcing a significant change in leadership. The gospel of Jesus is the declaration that his kingdom is being established here on earth as it is in heaven. And last week, Pastor Oliver spoke on how Jesus called his first disciples with the simple invitation of come and follow me. He doesn't tell them to follow a list of rules or expectation, but rather he invites them to join with him. And this forms the foundational thought for our series on Mark. The way of Jesus is so much more than following an ideology or a set of commands. It's about following the person of Jesus. And Jesus extended a come as you are invitation to the first disciples, and he's still making that same invitation to you and I today. I love the significance of a come as you are invitation. It says so much about you're welcome as you are. You're safe, you're accepted. You don't have to worry about bringing anything or being anything you're not. You don't have to worry about meeting anyone else's expectations. Have you ever been in a social situation where you felt unaccepted or out of place or that you didn't fit in or didn't belong? Maybe you weren't from the same culture or had a minority skin color from the rest of the room. Maybe you didn't have the same education or letters behind your name. Maybe you came from a different socioeconomic class and you didn't have the same financial wealth as everyone else at the table. Maybe it's more a matter of your career didn't seem as important as others. Maybe you just felt inferior or judged for any number of reasons. Being with a group of people who make you feel like you're not enough, who make you feel like you don't measure up, is a terrible experience. On the other hand, think of how life-giving it is to be with people who know you, all of your weaknesses and all of your flaws, and yet accept you for who you are. I have a number of friends like that in my life, and I love spending time with them. Hanging out with someone who accepts you for who you are is a life-giving experience. And have you ever noticed how Jesus interacts with so many people throughout the Gospels? Time and time again, we see him showing dignity to others, welcoming them as they are. And I want to look more at this theme in today's passage in Mark 1 in verses 40 down to 42. Just 3 simple verses, and yet they reveal so much about Jesus and his character. Mark writes this. He says, a man with leprosy came and knelt in front of Jesus, begging to be healed. If you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean, he said. And the scriptures say, moved with compassion, Jesus reaches out and touched him. I am willing, he said. Be healed. And instantly the leprosy disappeared and the man was healed. I love the profound simplicity of this encounter with Jesus. And I propose that the truth revealed in this short passage, these 3 verses, all that it contains, helps frame our entire understanding of how we approach Jesus and begin to build faith in our lives around him. By way of context, Jesus has just begun his public ministry by performing a few important miracles. His first miracles, as he begins in the Gospel of Mark, are to deliver some who are oppressed and possessed by demons, to break the hold of demonic forces on people's lives, and to then also perform gifts of physical healing. And Bible scholars point out that these two types of gifts of breaking spiritual forces and of bringing physical healing point to Jesus establishing his kingdom and his authority in both the heavenly spiritual realms and in the earthly physical realms. And notice how the man with leprosy comes and kneels down in front of Jesus. This is the universal symbol of submission to a higher authority. It's important to know that it would have been culturally acceptable, even expected in this time, for Jesus to have completely avoided the leper. Remember, this is a first century Jewish experience. And in this context, leprosy was considered ceremonially unclean. That means that if you came in contact with a leper or had any physical contact, or the person brushed by you in a marketplace or anything like that, that you now yourself had become ceremonially unclean. You were unable to participate in the temple practices and rituals. You were unable to participate in public gatherings and public forums. And it had far-reaching implications as a disease in a first century Jewish culture. Leviticus 13:45-46 says, "The person with leprosy must wear torn clothes. Let his hair be unkempt. Cover the lower part of his face and cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' As long as the infection remains, the person remains unclean. He must live alone and he must live outside the camp." And so leprosy is a disease with far-reaching implications and social stigmas. It caused physical pain and disfigurement, and it forced people into a life of rejection and isolation. The disease struck the whole person, affecting one's physical, mental, social, financial, spiritual health. The holistic part of everything that makes us up as a person is affected and impacted by leprosy. And as a result, a leper embodied the epitome of what it meant to live without hope and without acceptance. So think of how significant it is that Jesus does not avoid him, but he stops and he actually reaches out and he touches him and he heals him. Jesus does something far greater than just heal his physical wounds. He restores the whole being of the man's life. And there's a couple of key observations that I want to make on these 3 verses. The first is that Jesus welcomes an honest heart. And we see this in how Jesus responds to the leper and how the leper comes to Jesus. The man comes to Jesus with a measure of both fear and faith. And it's bold enough, he's bold enough to approach Jesus. He has faith that Jesus can heal him, but he has doubts and worries and insecurities if Jesus will heal him. Perhaps he wrestles with thinking, maybe I'm not worthy for Jesus to heal me. Maybe he wrestles with, maybe he thinks that Jesus is going to be too busy, or Jesus is going to be afraid of getting deemed unclean himself if he interacts with the man. And for whatever reason, he's got this sense of fear and wonder of, is it even possible that Jesus would see me and heal me? And when the man kneels down before Jesus, it's not only an act of bold faith, but it's an act of honest vulnerability. And I admire the leper for his honest mix of faith and uncertainty. I realize it's a popular teaching for us in the church to teach that miracles and powerful encounters with Jesus come as a result of our great faith, and that we shouldn't have any doubt at all and we should push it out because that poisons the seeds of faith in our life, and faith is what moves the hand of God. And there's lots of good teaching in that, lots of great truth. But I can't help but wonder if maybe miracles come in part by our humble honesty with God. We can't hide our lack of faith or our sin from God. Jesus knows what's happening on the inside of our heart. It's right there. He sees it. We can't hide it from him. Could it be your most significant encounters with Jesus come in part as a level of the honesty that you bring to Jesus? Second observation that I see in this story is Jesus is willing. This is such a great revelation of the character of God. Not only do I appreciate the man's sincerity, the leper's sincerity in approaching Jesus, but I love that Jesus doesn't just shoo him away. I love that Jesus isn't worried what others are going to think. I love that Jesus isn't worried that the Pharisees and the teachers of the law are now going to call Jesus unclean. And Jesus doesn't seem to have any regard for what other people are thinking in this moment. I love what this encounter reveals about Jesus. The scriptures say Jesus looks at the man and he's moved by compassion. Think of the significance and the beauty of that Jesus, this God we serve, this personal God we serve, is moved by compassion for humans. Jesus sees the man, not just the pain of his physical disease, but I can't help but think that Jesus sees the pain of this man's inner being, his fears, his hurts, his insecurities, his isolation, his rejection. Jesus has compassion not only for the wounds and bandages on the skin, but Jesus has compassion for the wounds and bandages on the soul. Jesus is moved by compassion for the pain of the man's isolation and his rejection. This leper lived in a world that continued to move to the other side when they saw him coming. Think of how significant it is that Jesus not only welcomes him to him, but that he reaches out and actually physically touches him. This captures that beautiful and profound moment of this story. Not only are the man's outer wounds healed, but Jesus breaks through all the stigma, all the rejection, and all the pain with this simple gesture of skin-to-skin contact. And when he does that, Jesus not only heals the man of his leprosy, but Jesus gives this man back his dignity. Jesus declares that this man is worthy, that he's a person, that he's no longer to be feared or ostracized or shunned or rejected. Jesus restores the whole of this man's life. Church, the way of Jesus begins with a come as you are invitation. And it's found in the revelation that Jesus is good. Jesus is not removed from the pain and sin of our life. He sees all of us. He sees everything on the inside, all of our insecurities. He sees everything on the outside, all our visible hurts. He sees the whole of us in our personhood. He's compassionate. He's approachable. And he welcomes each of us as we are. And these 3 verses encapsulate the essence of Jesus, that he is good. How many of us start to believe that lie that we don't measure up to God? And how many of us begin to let that lie shape our thinking and even affect how we approach Jesus? Instead of being wooed to Jesus' side by his love and mercy, we begin to distance ourselves from him because we think he's disappointed in us. And we think all he can see is our sin and our failure and our shortcoming. Now, this story shows us that Jesus is good in his very essence. And church, the more we let that truth sink in, the more we let that wash over our souls, the more we let that become and we just breathe in that simple truth that Jesus is good, that he sees us and he's willing and he's there, the more we live in that truth and that understanding, the easier it is to come to him for forgiveness, the easier it is to come to him in worship, the easier it is to come to him for guidance and strength, the easier it is to come to him for the source of all the goodness in our life. We don't need to fear Jesus. We don't need to continue to live with a separation or with anxiety in our faith and our spiritual connection to Jesus. Because, church, he's good. He sees us. And he responds to our honest heart with him. And so with that, I want to encourage you that Jesus is good. He sees us. He's moved by compassion, and he's willing to restore our lives. I just want to pray as we close our service. Jesus, I thank you for this church that makes up this community we call the house, and for every person who is participating and watching in this moment. We ask, Lord, for a fresh revelation that you are good. We ask that that would wash over our souls, that we would breathe that truth in, and it would form and shape our thinking in you. That you see us, that you respond to us, and that you're good. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, church, it's been so great to have you with us today, and we're so looking forward to the opportunity to get together again in person in the coming weeks ahead. And be sure to be watching for those announcements on social media and our website. And I want to also just remind you and invite you to follow along and participate in the week ahead with our spiritual guide, which we have available for download on our website. There's some different thoughts and suggested practices and readings on this idea and this theme of the come as you are invitation of Jesus, of this idea that Jesus is good. And maybe even today you've watched and maybe you've been stirred in your heart. You want to open your heart to faith in Jesus. Maybe you have some questions on what that means or what that looks like for you. We'd be happy to help talk that through and what that looks like in your life. You can reach out to us on our website. All the contact info is there, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Be blessed and know that Jesus is good.